Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Blocks. I'm your host, Rachel Pearman. It is lovely to have you here. If you are watching me on YouTube, I would love it if you can give me a little thumbs up. Ding, ding, ding. It's just down there. And if you do press that button, it means that my content gets pushed out into the algorithm. And of course, that means that somebody else might enjoy the interview as much as you have just enjoyed it. I would also like to have you as part of the gang, so do hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I launch a new episode of Breaking the Blocks, and sometimes I do bonus episodes, then just hit that notification bell, ding ding, and then it will tell you when I have posted. So who is my guest today? A fantastic quilter and artist called Lucy Engles. I worked with Lucy many years ago because I saw her work, couldn't resist it, asked her to teach with me on Crafty Monkeys, and she said yes. She's one of those people who is just so cool. She just epitomizes cool. Her work is really beautiful, but her work has also changed over the last few years. I noticed that there was now a softness to the work. The spiky edges were kind of missing in action, and I wanted to know why. Turns out that Lucy has made quite a few positive changes in her life. She's overcome some of her own blocks. What are they? Well, if you keep listening, you might just find out. So sit back, relax, and I do hope you enjoy the episode. Lucy Engles, my goodness me, it has been years since we last spoke.
Ages.
What have you been doing in that time? I'm thinking quilting?
Yeah. Saying no to lots of things is what I've been doing.
Interesting. Well, we are going to talk about all of that, of course, in this interview. I'm really looking forward to catching up with you, actually, because you and I worked together. Do you know, I saw this little picture yesterday on Instagram, and it was a picture of Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta in Greece. And then underneath, it was John Travolta and Uma Thurman in some movie where they both look wrecked in this car. And underneath it said the Greece one was 2019. So we're all kind of innocent and kind of happy. And then the next one was going into 24, where we all look like we've been through a car crash.
Yeah.
And you know, I looked at that and I thought, is it just me that really gets this picture, or is it everybody else? Because I don't know about you, Lucy, but since you and I work together, I feel like my life, my beliefs, my structure of my life, my personal development, everything is just turned upside down.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I know you've gone through a lot of changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's totally changed since then. That was back, it was in the panic modes, the panic 6 months maybe, when everyone was like, oh, we're all online, let's all go online. And everyone tried new things and was trying to be incredibly upbeat about lots of things. I'd shifted studios and I'd got things up and going, and then things were online, and I had a studio I could do that in, and then it was a bit overwhelming. And then just as I was getting back into the swing of things, they were like, oh no, we're just gonna, that's your studio gone. And I thought, don't have the energy. So a lot of this year has been kind of claiming that energy back a wee bit and just saying, actually, I don't have, not time for things, I just don't have the headspace. I'm being quite mindful about that. So I've said no to lots and lots of things that were actually going really well, but I just can't deal. I mean, you're a one woman operation. Yeah, it's hard.
So what? But how do we unpick
There's
all of this?
There's a lot.
There's a lot, Lucy. There's a lot. Okay, so why have you said no then? Because I know you just said there, you said no to lots of things, they were going well because you haven't got the mind space. So let's go a little bit deeper into that then. So what was it about? I mean, because I think to say no to things that are kind of borderline, not sure if I want to do that, is that down the right? And it's quite easy to say no. But if things are going well, wow, what's going on there then? Why have you had to say no? And what can you say what you've said no to, or the kinds of projects you've said no to?
Well, I've been doing this 10 years, and I think I kind of believe every 10 years you reinvent yourself and you become someone else. You know, that kind of 7 to 10 year mark, and you kind of evolve. So, yes, I think that kind of happened. 10 years passed, I kind of shifted from social work into quilting, and that kind of overlapped each other. And then I started doing the quilting, and you put things in place and your business becomes a business. I was doing the kits, and I was adding things, and I was adding fabric, and I was doing this, that, and the next, and I was printing my own fabric, doing the quilt patterns, doing all the things, doing the talks, doing the teaching. And that's all fine. but you need to have the energy to keep all that up. And I think after the pandemic, and it was fine, and business was going great. It was okay. Uh, and then just that knock of, oh, we're taking away your studio, and then you start looking for places to rehouse all these big projects that now you need space for, because you need the stock and the place to put them together and all the kind of practical logistics. And rent has quadrupled, and rates have gone up, and electricity's gone up, and you just think, I don't have the energy to. You would have to explode the business. It would have to become something bigger. So then there's that moment of self-reflection, and then the kind of 10 years has passed, and you think, hold on, what was it 10 years ago I wanted to do? And 10 years ago it was do a bit of social work and make art. That was it. And quilts happened to be the art form I was drawn to. And I thought, I'm not doing either. And I'd actually kept being asked to go back to social work. So I'm doing that half time now. I know,
Wow.
I know. So I'm back doing that, and it was just perfect timing. They contacted me, they need people back, found the right position. So that's happening, and that has freed me up to say no to all of these things, shut down the kit, shut down the fabric, do all the things, and now I'm making art. That takes ages. I've been doing this all year. The whole year I've been making this, but I have the freedom and the space, and I'm not using my creative brain for other things. So that's kind of what's happened this year.
It's really interesting because I speak to so many quilters who are working and then their quilting is their hobby. And I say to them, so what's the dream? And they all say, well, eventually to make it full time. But as you've just said there, I think if you then become a quilter full time, well, we all have to eat. So you've got to make money. So then you make money from a business, and then it becomes business and it's not art and it's not creating. You kind of lose that edge. It's a really difficult balance. It's a difficult balance to scale, isn't it? If that's the right word. I feel that with this business, I'm just kind of finding my way now. It's like we're doing this podcast because I've always been really interested in people. And obviously, you know, my background presenting. And although this is pushing me to my limits in terms of timings, but I thought, no, this is important to me. It's something I really want to do because I enjoy it. But it is so difficult when it is your business. But that, I think for you to make that move to go back to that social work, well, I think social work is it's vastly underpaid and underappreciated for the kind of work that you do. So I think it's really commendable what you're doing. I don't want that to sound patronizing. I think it is amazing you've made that step.
And it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It was just, it's it didn't just become a business either. It's a difficult thing because I did enjoy all of it, but my creative brain was not as creative as it was 5 years ago. And I think my work's more interesting. For me to be able to teach interesting classes, I need to make interesting work. And if you're not having the time to make the interesting work, nothing else follows on from that. Eventually, you get to a point where you're just like, it's like writer's block, quilter's block, if you like, it just doesn't work. So being able to not worry about money and have that half my week, just I go, I do that job, I've done it before. It's quite nice because I'm not using the same part of my brain.
And as you say, what happens is, well, you take that pressure off having
Hmm.
to make money from your art. So now
Yeah,
you are just creating for fun, and more art is created. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
well, so if ever there was a time to interview you for breaking the blocks, well, we're just talking about it there, aren't we? You've kind of broken that block. That block was, ironically, that block was working on art full
Hmm.
time. That was
Yeah.
the block. That's interesting.
I just I'm just going to say no to things. I can't take on new things. That's what I felt. I can't take on new things. I have to really be careful. I can't just say, oh, that's fine, I've got the space. It's not that I don't have a studio. I'm got a space with a charity in Edinburgh, Outer Spaces, who take over empty office buildings, but that's temporary, and they can ask you to move out at a moment's notice. I kind of think everything was just conspiring against me and saying, you just squeezing out part of the quilting business and shoehorning me down the art route
Yeah.
again.
Well, you seem happy, so it's obviously
It's
the right
great.
move. Do you feel, I'm sure, I think I know the answer to this, just the way you've been talking there, but do you feel, Lucy, that the universe or something, what is it? I mean, sometimes I wonder if it's like, Truman Show with Jim Carrey.
Hmm.
Sometimes I wonder if we're actually on a big TV set and someone up there is just laughing and they're just moving us around like, let's see what they'll do next. Let's see. But I feel like we're sent lessons, we're sent tests, but that is when you absolutely grow. That pain and the torment you go through. Do you believe that you can look back at those times and go, that's why that happened? Because I
Yeah,
had to learn that lesson and do that thing.
yeah. I think so. I think so. Half the problem is remembering it, isn't it? Remembering
Yeah.
what you've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've always been someone. I'll try I'll give something a go. If somebody asks me, like when you came along, says you want to, I'd never taught online, didn't know what I was doing, and I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's see how it works. And actually, I think anything at that point, I would have just been, this is too much, this is too much. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, yeah, it's fine, like part of my social work training kicked in. It's all right if some, we'll manage that. But there comes a point where you burn out from it, and I think that's what happened. Yeah, later on in that year. Can't remember what I
Yeah.
was answering.
I can't remember either. It's about the universe. What does do you believe the universe sends us lessons to learn from, and we end up with our soul's true purpose, really, which for you
Yeah,
seems to be the social work and the creativity. I'm interested to
yeah,
how those two are linked. How are they? Do you think they're linked? Do you?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, how are they linked?
The type of person it is that does goes to art school is generally quite open-minded. You have to be a good problem solver. You're very accepting of whoever in society. Um, you don't really judge. And artists, I can't remember who it was that did the quote about how artists are like most dangerous of people because they can slip into any class level. You can go into like the highest of classes and just go, I'm an artist, and you get away with it. So I think there's that kind of acceptance within artists and creative people in general that they're non-judgmental, and that is the crux of social work. That's it. I always kind of worked in substance misuse and kind of mental health area. So I think you have to be quite creative in your approaches to how you work with people. And also, there is the therapeutic, what's the value of artwork and mental health and all that. They just kind of sit side by side and they seem very separate, but they're not. They're not. And I think it is the type of person you are rather than anything else.
I think one thing that is incredible about social workers and people who work in that area, and you must not be this to be able to do it, Lucy, is to not be judgmental, because you will see a lot of stuff. I mean, my mother-in-law used to be a nurse within the social care system, and she saw a lot of abuse. And I used to say to her, how did you not want to pick up the person who was doing the abusing and, grab them by their shirt, whatever? And she said it was very, very difficult. And it did affect her with her own children, because I think she used to look at her own children and think, do you not know how lucky you are? So in a way, she was kind of quite a little bit harsh at times with her own children, because it was like she was seeing this other side of life. It was very difficult for her to deal with on an emotional basis. So I think for you to take on that, that's quite incredible. You must be so non-judgmental as a person.
Well, you have to, part of your job is to make judgments. That's the thing.
Mm.
To make judgments about whatever situation. Because everyone has prejudices or stereotypes. And I think being aware of them and aware of your preconceived ideas is half the battle to not being judgmental. It's not that kind of first reaction. It's like, oh, I think that being self aware enough to go, oh, I'm thinking this because of a past experience I had, but that's not this person, and just taking a little step back. It's training though. You still have to make judgments, but they're based on evidence
Yes.
rather than,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Let's talk about your art then, Lucy. And in terms of, so you've said that now it's kind of open in this creative avenue for
Yeah.
you. I mean, there's two things. One I'm interested in, would you ever go down, do you think, the art therapy route where you're combining the two?
I actually did a part-time, so maybe a year-long part-time course in art therapy. So I had to try them all. And weirdly, dance movement therapy was the best one. And I am not a dancer, not a mover. So that was the other option. It was either I was going to be an art therapist or a social worker. And actually, there was less jobs as an art therapist. And it was my plan B. It was my backup. I've often thought about art psychotherapy, which you need an art degree and a social work degree for.
Yeah,
So
which you have. Ta-da!
ta-da! So I have those. And that would be a route that interests me, but it's training. I don't know if I want to again.
Mm,
But
mm,
that area does really interest me. Really
yeah.
interests me.
So, how is this new soul's purpose, this path that you've put yourself on that you felt you should have been on 10 years ago? How is that affecting your work then? Because I was always drawn to your work. You know, as I said to you, I just look on Instagram. If I see something I like, I'll reach out to the person and say, will you teach it? I still do that. I did it with Ben Millett the other day. I had a lovely chat with
Yeah.
him. I really love, I mean, as I said to you at the time, I really like modern art. So I loved what you did because it was so crisp, clear, but there's a real cool edge to you. There is a cool thing about you that I've never had about me. But, you know, you are just, I just see you as a cool person. You've got, yes, get in. But when I look at yours, you know, obviously we've got the dots behind you, they're the
Mm.
circles. And can
Hmm.
I just say, the quilt that your children held up on the wall,
Oh, yes. Vanishing Act.
that is just an amazing piece.
That's my perimenopause quilt. Menopause quilt. Angry. Really angry.
Wow, okay. That's interesting because there is a lot of
Yeah.
spiky things in there.
Very spiky. Hmm.
Wow. Okay. Okay, I'll put a
Hot
picture
flash
of that in
quilt.
this chat. Yeah, no. I
Ah!
like it. I like it.
So yeah, I had an open studio and I was hanging that up and I was talking about Naive Melody one, which was the lockdown quilt, the kind of sister quilt to that, the first one. And then the next one, and it's another 100-day project. And I think 7 days into that, the war in Ukraine started. And you know, I just thought, I don't have the emotional energy to put that in a quilt. So anyway, so I kept doing it for because it's a record, it's a kind of visual record of the 100, whatever happens in the 100 days. Anyway, as I was going along, but we realized I started HRT basically, and I was like, oh my God, this is what's been going on for this whole time. It was just so angry. And I was like, I cannot go for another thing. I mean, I think that's also, I think, part of this whole 10-year cycle and the kind of shift into the next phase of my life. But Vanishing Act, and part of that is why it's called Vanishing Act. We all, women, seem to kind of vanish into middle aged. And, you know, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
doing that. How dare you?
I know. Do you know that's a whole other podcast in itself, right there,
I
Lucy?
know.
But yeah, no, it is such a difficult transition. I mean, I do
Hmm.
apologise to the men now who are listening, but we have got a lot of sensitive men listening, so it's fine. But it's very true that it is a very difficult time for you
Yeah.
because I think just purely from a physical point of view, you know, there is something that has been there all of your life, this fact that you can have children, or if you're lucky enough to be able to have children, and you've had children, I have, and then that's like taken away from you, and it's almost like you feel like someone is going, right, we're going to take a big chunk away from you. And do you know,
Oh, it's
not
freeing though.
it,
It's freeing.
well,
I've
yeah,
enjoyed it. I was just like, wow, great, done.
really.
Yeah.
I don't know what it. Do you know for me what my problem was? It wasn't the losing the childbearing thing, because I'm very pleased to have had the one, and she's now 18. Done, job done. For me, it's the societal. You know, you just sort of
Hmm.
vanish because I think we're all
Yes.
about youth and beauty. Beauty is youth. Was
Hmm.
not, you know, but
Hmm.
also as you say, as a woman, it's kind of like losing your power somehow. And like you
Mm-hmm.
say, vanishing, disappearing from society. What's your use now? What's your use?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't have children anymore. Your face is full of wrinkles.
Mm-hmm.
Boobs have dropped 15 inches from where they were. What is the point of
Mm-hmm.
you? Which is so wrong.
Yeah.
But
And
this is this.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, and then some women are going to get the support. Fortunately, I have had my GP surgery is amazing, and the nurse practitioner I work with is amazing. But I've had the confidence to go and say, this is what's happening to me, and I'm ticking all these boxes, so we're going to try this. And if it doesn't work, then it's fine. So I think I have got in early, I have nipped it in the bud, and had not had as bad an experience as others have, even trying to convince them to entertain the idea that that might be happening in your, like, I'm mid-40s now, you know?
Yep. But all I will say is I'm with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to change doctors though, because my doctor, well, I mean, all I'll say is he was a young male doctor. And when I went in and I said, I know this is perimenopause, and I was
Mm-hmm.
43, he said to me, it can't be the menopause because you're 43. I said, no, perimenopause. And he went, there isn't a perimenopause. At which
It's
point
a
I left that
decade.
surgery. I know.
It's
I
a
left the
decade.
surgery. I
Good for
know.
you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that quilt's about. That's it.
I'm going to go back and look at that quilt in more detail now. I love
Yeah.
it.
I just made a conscious effort this year to go, no, I'm going to do what I want. And also, I actually feel better. I'm less sore. I have more energy. I sleep.
Yes.
I sleep.
Yes. I know. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
It's
amazing?
so
No, but
nice.
that
So
goes.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
makes such a difference to your life, just that little bit of self-care, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you really sensitive now to when the balancing is not quite working? So, for example,
Mhm.
if the social work starts taking over the quilting, you haven't got time for the quilting, or if the quilting starts becoming more important than I'm not sure if that happens, but
Mhm.
are you aware of that balancing now more than you were in the past before you made that leap?
Yeah. I started quilting as a kind of stress relief from to have something else to focus my head away from what was quite an overwhelming, I think it's like 5 or 6 years. And I think working in that area, you can only do 5 years, and you have to change position, otherwise it really grinds you down. So I started quilting as that kind of stress relief, and now I think I have the balance because I have half and half, and I'm very good now at putting it in, like compartmentalizing it, and say, right, I go and I'm focused on it for like 2.5 days, and then I stop and I leave. And see, by the time I get home, I actually can't remember people's names. I have perfected the skill of just emptying it out and leaving there. As soon as I walk back in the office, it comes straight back and I'm into it. So that's handy.
Yeah. 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 But that's good. It is that self development,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's that knowing yourself and
Yeah.
listening. Do you find that it's like listening to your inner soul? Do you feel like sometimes
Yeah.
there's a voice inside you that says, no, 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 hang on.
Yeah. It's thinking. People don't think enough. They
No.
don't sit down and go, right, this is what I want. How will I get there? What are the steps I need to take to get there? And how can I still be happy when I get there? It's that kind of, what do I really want?
But it's also bravery as well, Lucy, because I think what you did was a very brave move. I mean, you probably don't consider it as bravery because you think that's what I wanted to do and I did it. But other people would go, wow, that's a brave move. That's a bold move, because they would see it as taking a step back from the quilting world. But what you're seeing it is as a step forward, because you're able to put better work out there.
Quite a lot of the quilters don't produce a huge amount of quilts in a year. They're not churning out a quilt every month. It's maybe one or two, or when you see somebody, you know them for a few quilts, and that's possibly years of work. So I don't think you have to, and perhaps it's a confidence I have now that I didn't have before. I'm just not running the business the same. The business is being an artist, and that takes time, and that's fine. And maybe you produce 2 or 3 quilts a year.
But you know what I think is really interesting is, okay, so the piece behind you on the wall, I could sort of see like a curtain of discs. and the wind blowing through them, and then these
Mm.
discs going like this. You know, if someone goes like that
Yeah.
across the discs, and they all sort of go, and they're
Oh,
sort of
that'd be a
flapping
nice
in the wind.
installation, wouldn't it?
Yes. But
Hmm.
it's all sort of relaxed, chilled, flapping in the wind. Your colours are, although you've still very much got your strong colour sense, there's a kind of gradation that goes through it as well when I was looking
Hmm.
at it. And that was what came to mind, this kind of like wind, soft, like soft little bells that you can hear, a beautiful summer's day, and
Hmm.
someone with their fingers just touching these lovely discs, and this disc going like that. Whereas before, when I looked through your previous work, which is what I saw you, and you've mentioned the
Hmm.
spiky. So we've got strong triangles, strong graphic. And isn't that interesting that that has kind of gone with you?
This one's a digital manipulation of Vanishing Act. It is, if you hold them side by side, it's a spotted pixelation of Vanishing Act. This is like a quarter of it. So yeah, so they're all gonna hang
But
together.
do you think there is a progression that it's got
Oh
softer?
yeah,
Because that's where I
yeah,
feel.
yeah. I'm less angry. I'm not as tired. I get more than 4 hours sleep a night. It has been life changing.
So what is in the future for Lucy then? What would you, now knowing what you know, you've got to where you want to be. So what now is the next challenge that we need the universe to bring?
I need the universe to bring just being able to exhibit work, not necessarily in a quilt show, as I've learned in the past. I make quilts, but when you enter a quilt into a quilt show, they're judging you as quilter and not an artist. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Yes.
different. Just that, yeah. Technically, they're judging you rather than aesthetically. So, um, probably putting my quilts in different places and seeing what happens, and
Yeah.
possibly putting on an exhibition. And I would love to collaborate with Adidas. Anyone?
Okay.
Putting that out there.
Put that out there.
Adidas,
Why
Adidas,
them?
whatever.
Why them and not Nike?
I could, I love the colors. I love the colors they use. I love the colors of the tracksuit tops. I love the 80s, 70s, just really nice. Love it. Every time I see one, it's just like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll put it out there
But it's
now.
the
That's
colors.
it. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I think of like a bright yellow when I think of them. Adidas or
Yeah,
Adidas. You know, that popping yellow.
yeah.
And I think it is interesting, like you say. I was saying last night to someone about this quilting world that I inhabit, and I said I think people, do instantly think, oh, you must be hanging out with 80-year-olds with lap quilts on their knees. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I do think the quilting world has completely, or is transforming and is shifting now. And there are so many amazing artists out there. It's not. I don't see you as quilters. I see you as artists. Yeah.
Yeah, totally changed. And there's stuff, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I was making small colour studies, and they were English paper quilt prints, I called them. And I did this whole series of quilt prints. People were not, I don't know if they were ready for them. I couldn't sell them at the price they should have been sold. And now I kind of see people selling framed textile pieces, and it's almost like they've accepted that that is an art form.
Yeah.
Whereas when I did it, they were like, "Oh yeah, I can do that," and I'm like, "Well, you didn't, you know, you didn't."
This is what I said last week to Cindy Grisdella. We had the exact
Uh-huh.
same conversation. I
Hmm.
remember, this is the thing about modern art. I remember going to a gallery I took my dad to a gallery. I think it might have been the Tate or something. And
Hmm.
there was an exhibition on, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Tracy Emin or something. I don't know, but it was
Hmm.
some artist. And in the middle of the floor, I mean, well, we could talk about her bed. She put her mattress, didn't she?
Yeah.
But at the middle of the floor for this one, there was a pile of bricks.
Hmm.
And the way the bricks have been placed, the artist had done it, and he wrote a piece about his life
Hmm.
breaking apart and what happened to him. But it was a pile of
Hmm.
bricks. And I remember my dad saying, well, I could do that. I could do that, get a wheelbarrow and chuck some bricks in with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I turned around and I went, but you didn't, did you? That was my exact response. But you didn't, did you?
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what is art?
Hmm.
Do you think it's in all of us, Lucy? Do you think we can all create it?
Oh yeah, everyone's creative. Everyone's creative. Some people just spend more time doing it and practice and think about it and want to do it. Some people hate doing it. But it's either, I don't know, baking or telling stories or singing or dancing or like it's all part of that expressing yourself package. Uh, so yeah, everyone can do it in
So
some way.
why do you think people choose not to do it or tell themselves they're not creative? Because you have heard that millions of times. Oh, I can't do
Mm,
that. Oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I'm not. Do you know what? I even said it at the beginning of my business. Oh, I'm not the creative. And I'm deeply creative. I think I was just
mm-hmm,
overawed by all your talent, people
mm-hmm.
like you coming out and actually doing it. But what is it when you meet someone who says, "Oh, no, I'm not creative. I'm not creative." What is it? Why are they saying that?
Oh, it's confidence. Generally, you find out someone made a comment when they were 5, or they didn't colour in the lines. That's the common one. I don't know. It's just that maybe just recognizing what creativity actually is.
Yeah.
Maybe people aren't creative, but maybe they're very good at other things. Maybe they're very good at athletes or moving or, you know, but even with that, I suppose you have to be creative with how you train.
Yes, yeah, that's
Hmm.
right. How you bend at the block and set off, and da da
Yeah.
da da, and which
Hmm.
rhythm, and then how quickly the body comes up.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what frightens you, Lucy? Is there anything that frightens you about the future?
Nah.
No, I love it.
No, honestly, I can't. I can't off the top of my head. Um, I think I've just made my life really easy in this past year. It's like normally at this time of year, I'm like, oh, right, I need to start. Can I take some time off? You have to launch back into January full steam ahead to make sure you stay ahead and now I'm like, oh, this is nice. And it's just, so yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it. So no, I mean, there's the usual, the ill health or natural disaster or war, but they're big things that generally you can't control. So why?
That's good. I like this Lucy. I mean, I like the previous Lucy, but I like you. There
I'm
is
a lot less stressed.
exactly. I did see the stress. I did see the stress, but it's lovely to see, the change in you and how
Hmm.
relaxed you are now and still loving what you do. And I'm still loving what you
Hmm.
do and seeing that change in your work as well.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
on a final note, then, Lucy, I always ask this question. I always ask this question. What is a motto of yours? If you have one, what is your motto?
It is ever since I did my social work training and you just had to get on and do it. I think that has been it. It's like, just do it. Just do it. What is the worst that can happen? Just try it out. You can always
Yeah,
just say no,
yeah,
you know?
just do it. Yeah.
Just do it. Nothing's that bad, generally.
Which ironically is the tagline for Nike and not Adidas.
I know
You're getting your brands
any
mixed up
sports
there.
brands are welcome as long as they do have pleasure wear.
Well,
Hmm.
I'm happy that you're happy, and it's lovely to see. And I look forward very much to seeing you just do it. And
Yes,
let's see what comes out of the new Lucy Engles, who is still
I
so
know.
cool, so cool.
Thank
It's
you.
been lovely talking to you. Thank you, Lucy.
Nice speaking to you as well.
Just before you go, lovely listener, can I ask you a favour? If you have a friend who you think would enjoy listening to this podcast, would you mind please telling them about it? It helps me to spread the word, and you never know, they might get a life lesson out of it, or at the very least, just have a lovely 40 minutes of relaxing time for themselves. The second thing to say is that if you have enjoyed this, it would really help me if you would give me a little quick like or a comment, especially if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms. It just means that when anybody lands on the page, they can see that people have reviewed it, they've liked it, enjoyed it, and got something out of it. So if you wouldn't mind leaving me a review, that would be amazing. And the final thing to say is that if you are a business and you're thinking, how do I get my message out there? Well, you could do it on this podcast. All you have to do is reach out to me, rachel@breakingtheblocks.com. The details are below in the box. Thank you so much to everybody for listening and enjoying and saying the lovely things that you're saying.